Hello, hello. This is Isaac. Welcome to week number 1 of Bible Breakdown. Okay, so we need to understand the culture and the context of the Bible when it was written, because we don't want to bring our culture and context onto it. All right, there you go. That's pretty much a good wrap up. So John Williams' book, How to Not Read the Bible. Number 1, Bible is a library, not a book. Does anybody know what Bible means?
Book.
It means books. It's just Greek for books. Fun fact of the day. So a lot of times we get in trouble because we will, and sometimes it's just semantics. I'm not, trying to be a jerk or anything, but sometimes we'll call this like God's book or the holy book or, the great book. And I get what you mean, but for our conversation, I never want to hear that, because this is not a book. This is, how many books? Anybody know? 66 books. 66 books in our Christian Bible. Okay? 66 books in this Bible. Now, why is it a big deal to understand that this is a library? What do you do when you enter a library? Have you guys ever been to a library?
Yes.
Okay. It was like such a big deal. When I was a kid, we had all these classes on like how to navigate a library, and we just like, I've never been to a library like since I was a kid.
We don't have.
Well, they're obsolete.
That's I decided to.
Have you guys been grilled on the Dewey Decimal System? Okay, I've been grilled on this thing, and it's completely obsolete. Okay, but what do you do when you go to a library? Not a trick question. What do you do? You're looking for a book. So, okay, Mia, what kind of book are we trying to find? Just pick a book.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Let's just call it science. Let's call it a science book. When I walk into a library and I want to find a science book, what do I do?
You're like, the science.
I go to the science section. And let's just say, the book is called Science. That's the name of the book, okay? So I'm in the science section looking for a book called Science. Now what do? Yeah, I start going through the other books, skipping over them, trying to find the exact book I want to get to so I can find the exact book. And why do I even want a science book? I want to learn about science, okay? In the same way with the Bible, I don't get to say, man, I want to learn about science, and then just pick any book of the Bible.
Yeah.
Because that's not what the books are about. You don't get to say, I want to learn about science, and look at the librarian and just say, just go grab a book. I'll just assume it's about science. And she brings you Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and you're terrified. You don't know what's happening anymore. You think Roderick is a celestial being. It's like, no. Do you guys even know these books? Okay, good. All right, good. Still hope in the culture. Right? That's not what you do, because otherwise you're going to go in with a certain understanding. When I get a science book, I'm looking for facts, I'm looking for evidence, I'm looking for information. And when someone brings me Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I'm going to treat it inappropriately, because Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a scientific book. No, it's a fiction comedic novel. So I'm going to treat those two things very differently based on how I look at them. I'm not going to look at Diary of a Wimpy Kid and say, man, how do the planets form, right? And I'm not going to look at Science, the book, and say, man, how did Roderick, screw his little brother over today? That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat them appropriately based on their genre. There are many genres in the Bible, in the library that we call the Bible. And I need to make sure that when I go to look at the book, I know what genre it is so that I can treat it appropriately. I can deal with it the way that it's meant to be dealt. Now listen, this issue is where we as 21st century Americans get into big time problems. Because somewhere a couple hundred years ago, there was a big debate. There was like a split in the church, a split in the government of like science versus like religion. And all of a sudden you couldn't have them together anymore. Now, let me just say, up until like 200-300 years ago, those two things it was guaranteed they were overlapped. Isaac Newton's a scientist. All those like big guys, they're scientists and they're Christians. They understood that these two things complemented each other. Eventually they split, and now you have to, as a Christian, what you've been taught accidentally is that to beat an atheist in an argument, you need to understand Genesis really well. Well, I don't mean to destroy anyone's faith. Genesis is not a science book. In fact, Genesis is not even trying to communicate to you how things came to be. It's not what it's trying to do. It's trying to communicate who made things, who brought things to be, not how they came to be, what they do, and what the modalism is. It's trying to get the point across to you that God did all these things. Well, how do you do it? Shut up, doesn't matter. God did it. That's what Genesis is trying to communicate. But when we go and we read Genesis and we go, okay, God, what are the methods in which you created the universe? I'm already not reading it correctly because that's not what Genesis is there to do. There are some answers of that in Genesis, but its primary function is not to communicate to you the scientific method of how the world came to be. Its primary communication that he's trying to communicate to you is God made all these things. And we have a problem. It's called sin, right? So it's like the worst science book ever because it spends like 2 chapters explaining where everything comes from and then jumps into a dialogue between a snake and a woman. What kind of science book is that? It's not a science book. That's like the point. And we've been taught that I go into my Bible and I find my answers so that I can apply them to my life and I can beat my atheist friend in an argument. And that's not at all what the Bible's trying to do. Does this make sense? Okay, so the Bible's not a library. Second thing is that the Bible was written for us, but it was not written to us. You hear me on this? Second thing, if you're writing stuff down, I would write this down. And I would write everything down because you guys can't remember things. Because no one can remember. This is a lot of information. No one's meant to remember all this, right? The Bible is written for us. It is not written to us. What's the significance of that statement?
Well, the Bible is for everybody, but the direct language, context, and knowledge, everything is used to apply into first century.
Exactly. So a lot of what we talked about earlier with the context. I need to know who it is written to, why it was written to them, who wrote it, and what were they meant to understand in it. And then I'll apply it backwards to my life. What we like to do is we like to just like pick up the Proverbs, say, oh, here's a good line about wisdom, and apply it to my life. Now, Proverbs, that's probably a good book to do that with. That's fine. You can get away with that. When you get into Leviticus, you better never shave your head. You better never get a tattoo. You better never eat pork. You better never do all sorts of things. Women, you best not be speaking. Like, that's like, if I take that same style and I apply it into a book where that style is not meant to be applied, I'm going to come to bad conclusions. Make sense? Make sense? So it's written for us. It's not written to us. That's why I'm not Jewish. You guys get what I'm tracking with? You get what I'm saying here? Okay. Number 3, never read a verse. Just write it down. It's clickbait. It's clickbait. I'll explain it, but just write it down. Never read a verse. Huh? What'd you say? Did somebody say something?
Oh, I think this is number 3.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said the reason why. I thought you were already on it. I was excited. I thought you were already there.
It's like,
Yeah. So never read a verse. Why? What's the word?
It doesn't need context.
Context. Write down, literally all of you, write down context 3 times underneath that. Context, context, context. There is nothing more important than reading the Bible than context. Otherwise, I can never get a tattoo. I have to wear a head covering. If you're a girl, you can't talk. I can never eat pork. All these, and don't even think about boiling a goat in its mother's milk. Don't even think about doing that. The most repeated command in the Old Testament is that. Don't even think about doing that, right? Yes, 100%. If you are not going to read in context, you have to apply all 614 laws to yourself every day. And if you don't worry. There's a whole book of the Bible dedicated to what you do when you mess up. So all day, every day, you're making sacrifices. Okay? Context, context, context. I said it like that because the book said it like that, and I thought it was really good clickbait. Never read a verse. Because listen, guys, if you just listen to a podcast or a movie and you just took a random line and applied it somewhere, you're going to miss the whole point. You miss everything, right? If all I knew from Star Wars is that Darth Vader is Luke's father, oh, what? Oh, you told him that. Oh, you're such a great dad. Now they're going to bond with each other, and he let him know, I'm your father. Or maybe this. Maybe Luke got switched at birth. And, he kind of did. But, Luke got, lost, and he's been desperately searching for his father, and he finally found his dad, and praise the Lord. Luke, I'm your father. You found me. What's the problem with all this? I'm missing the fact that Darth Vader is an evil, tyrannical dictator trying to get the only source of light in the world, Luke Skywalker, to join his evil side. I'm missing all of that. Because why? I'm just reading a verse. I'm just reading a line. I'm not putting it in its home. I'm taking something out of its house and saying, "What? Be a house on your own." Okay? There's a great. Well, I guess I'll talk about it later. Okay, so every verse has a paragraph. Every paragraph has a section. Every section has an overarching thought. Every overarching thought has a book. Every book is attached to a people, to an author, to a genre, to a Bible. You know what I'm saying here? So you can't just cherry pick verses. Now listen, what we do as preachers and communicators all the time is we'll cherry pick quotes, I'm using quotes, cherry pick a verse to make the point. If you're gonna remember anything, remember this verse right here. This verse makes the point, and then what's the rest of the message? Explaining the point. I'm putting the verse back into its context. And me as the communicator, because I'm a good pastor and every pastor here is a good pastor, I've done the homework and the background work to understand the thought and the paragraph and the book and the chapter and the genre and what I've done all that so that when I give you the application, it's true application. So you can actually understand it. Now listen, this is not to mess with anybody. One of the verses that is taken the most out of context is Jeremiah. Yeah. Be strong and courageous. What's the verse? You know it?
Should be Jeremiah 29.
Yeah.
Final things I have finished for my plans come some things I'm trying to.
So yeah, time out. I have plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Okay? And we all go say, dude, God's on our side. God will never harm me. Therefore, if something is harming me, it's not God. Well, what's the problem? Who is God talking to? Jeremiah. He's not talking to you. He's looking at Jeremiah and saying, Jeremiah, I have plans to prosper Jeremiah and protect Jeremiah. And in the context, I know that Jeremiah is fighting for the salvation of Israel. So I know the context, I know what's happening, I know who Jeremiah is, and I know that God is talking to Jeremiah. But we turn around and say, yeah, God has plans to prosper me, not to harm me. Now, does God have plans to prosper you? Yeah, he wants you to have a good life. He has plans for you. Does God want to harm you? Not for no good reason. He doesn't want to just turn around and throw a brick at you and say, watch out, and run away. That's not what God's trying to do. But if I do bad math, if I draw bad conclusions because I have bad context, I'll now look at my life and say, well, I'm being harmed. So it can't be God, it must be the devil. So I need to do everything I can do to get out of being harmed. What's a guy in the Bible we know that got harmed? Keep going. Jesus. Who gets harmed the most? Jesus, right? Now, did God have plans to prosper Jesus? But did God harm Jesus? Yeah. So what's the problem? Is God a unreliable, inconsistent, schizophrenic God that just loves Jeremiah and hates Jesus? No, the problem is I didn't read Jeremiah properly. You guys track with me? Making sense? So I can't just read verses. I have to understand what's going on there. And then there's a whole different argument of what does it mean to prosper? What does it mean to harm, right? All these things. There's a whole different whole different discussion in there. So never just read a verse. Always put it in context. If I just read a verse, I'm going to come to bad conclusions. Make sense? I'm going to think that Darth Vader is the world's best dad, and finally track down his son, and then having a great hug, and then having a party. That's not what's happening, right? Okay. Number 4 principle from this book, How to Not Read the Bible. You guys should 100% read it. Is the Bible is a unified story that points to Jesus. This is like the Bible Project's like bread and butter mantra. They are always about this, and if you guys look at any of the stuff that they do, they tell you about a story, they tell you about an Old Testament thing, they bring out this thing, and then they bring it back to Jesus every time. And that's not an inappropriate thing to do because the Bible is a unified story that brings back to Jesus, okay? I shouldn't say that. Every pastor at Grace Church, when they give a message, where do we land? We land on Jesus. Somehow, some way, we're landing on Jesus. Are we being inappropriate with the scripture, with an Old Testament scripture when I bring it all the way to New Testament Jesus? Why? Why am I not being inappropriate about that?
That's the point.
Because they're all connected. Now, can you guys tell me off the top of your head how Leviticus is connected to Jesus? No, I got to do it. Maybe you can, but it's probably wrong. I got to do all this work to figure out how. Because the original readers, the original guys that are hearing this, they're doing this work to figure out how, and they don't even always know who Jesus is. But they know about what? Messiah. Where does Messiah first show up in the Bible? What's Messiah mean? Anybody know? Who's Savior? Who's the Savior? Jesus. They don't know Jesus. They just know there's a Messiah. They just know there's a Savior. Where does Messiah, this idea of Messiah, first show up in the Bible? The first page. Or the first couple pages. Where does it show up? What's the line? Yeah, so what's the line? What's the same slide? You'll strike his heel, he'll crush your head. So it is not inappropriate for me to attach everything back to Jesus, because from the very beginning, who attaches it to Jesus? God attaches it to Jesus. Make sense? Makes sense? So that's not inappropriate. How do I know that God's attaching it to Jesus? Oh, I'm reading my Bible properly. I'm looking up the context, I'm understanding, okay? One of my teachers way back when, he wrote it out like this. I'm not a big white guy, but some in my inner line read here. And this is how you guys are taught to think. I'm taught to think this exact same way. You're taught to think this. I have point one. Okay. Now that brings me to point two. That brings me to point three. That brings me to point four. And now, because 1, 2, 3, and 4 all add up, I get 5. Woo! Right? I did what I'm supposed to do. I thought because of this, therefore this, therefore this, and this, and that gives me this. You guys I'm being very ambiguous, but you guys tracking with me? Yeah. Okay. I am taught to think down and up. Okay? And whoa. In law school and mathematics, honestly, in engineering, most fields, there's a word called falsifiability. It's a big word, but basically what you're trying to say is, does it make sense going down, and does it make sense going back up? Scientific method. Am I remember scientific method? What is it? You nodded yes, so no reason.
remember this.
Remember this? Yeah. I have an idea, I question it, I test it, I question again, I test again, and now I come to the public school system is failing young. You're right, okay? But this is how I think. This is how I think as a modern American. I think up and I think down. And then if I really want to make sure I'm thinking good, I think back up. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Okay. That is a way of thinking. There's nothing wrong with that type of thinking. The Bible doesn't really think like that. The Bible thinks like this. The Bible thinks in a circle. Okay? We'll get into this in a little second, but this is the difference between mechanism and agency. Does everybody know those words? Mechanism and agency. Mechanism is why something works, how something works. Agency is why the thing exists. Make sense? So if I'm looking for method in Genesis, I'm going to read every part of creation as a cog in the machine, as a lever that's being pulled, as the piston that's spinning, as the tire that's going around, because I'm trying to figure out how does the universe work. The universe works because there's sun and there's water and there's land, but wait, I have a problem because the sun and vegetables come into existence at different times. What do you say? I have a problem. So now I have to go back and say, okay, that's not actually what the Bible meant. The Bible actually meant this, where's my problem? Right away, I'm saying that's not what the Bible meant because I'm putting my interpretation onto the Bible of how the Bible should work. What the Bible does is it talks in circles. I know that maybe sounds weird, but what it's trying to get you to understand is not how things work, but why they work. I don't know how creation works, but I know it exists inside of this circle. What do I know about creation? I know He created it. I know He has the power to create things. And I know that once He creates everything, He created me and He said, I'm special. That's a different type of thing. Okay, so why in the world does the God of the universe feel the need to communicate to me, I'm special and I'm unique and I'm different? How do I know I'm special, different, and unique?
Good value. That's like,
Okay, what's God say? I'm made in the image of God. So God gives this whole account of creation and only one thing is in His image. Oh, that's a big deal. That's a big deal because not only is there a pattern that Genesis lays out, it breaks the pattern out of nowhere. So I'm then supposed to go and look and say, why did the pattern break? How did the pattern break? What's going on with the breaking pattern? Does this make sense? You guys track with me, okay? So the Bible is written like this, and every part of it is spiraling to what? Jesus. So when I start in Leviticus, I might be way out here, but I'm still spiraling towards Jesus. And when I get to Acts, I'm right there, and I get it. And the Bible wants you to use falsifiability as well. It wants you to think back out. So now I know about Acts. Well, I've spiraled back out, and it helps me understand Leviticus. But I have to spiral right back in because that's the way the Bible's set up to be read. Makes sense? You guys track with me.
Yeah.
Don't just nod your head so long. There's no grade. If you guys have a question or a thing, I want to hear it. Fitch.
So you said, well, the Mike doesn't know how something works. So what the word was for why it exists?
Method versus agency.
Agency.
Yeah. Those are your scientific terms.
What is a?
Agency is why something exists. Method is how it works.
What is the word in? To why is?
That's just kind of the word that gets like brought up, just because it's kind of used in like scientific circles. But like, if I tell Brad, you have agency over this room, what am I telling Brad? He's in charge of this room. Now, if I tell Brad, how did this room get built? You have no clue. Because that's but I'm telling Brad, okay, you have agency over this room. What do you want to do in the room? Well, whatever you want. He has agency, right? So if God has agency, the Bible's not trying to get me to ask the question, how did God build the room? The Bible's trying to get me to ask the question, what's God doing in the room? And maybe I can extrapolate, I can start to understand how the room is built if I understand why God's using it. Because if I understand why God's using hammer, I can start to look at, okay, well, what's the purpose of a hammer? How's it get built? How's it get used? But it's not the end-all, be-all goal of the Bible to communicate to you how the room was built. Make sense? We're going to see that in Genesis right away. Right away. It's awesome. You guys tracking with me? Yes. Okay. So I like I said, this first class is less, classes, I don't want to use that word. This first group is less interactive because we really super need to understand this concept. Because if we don't get this concept, we're forever going to be frustrated with the Bible. Because we're going to be looking at the Bible as, give me the method, give me the method, give me the method. And the Bible's like, no, I'm not trying to give you the method. I'm trying to give you the agent. I'm trying to give you the why. I'm trying to give you the purpose. Make sense?
So reading the Bible, we have to read it as the agency of the.
Mm-hmm. Now, there will be times in the Bible where it gives you the method.
Yeah.
But very rarely. And what our minds are programmed to is to find the method in the Bible. That's what our minds are programmed to. You tracking? You look dazed.
I don't know. I was just having a weird thought I don't know how to explain.
Let's hear it.
I was thinking like, I don't know if this is gonna make any sense, but if rather than like a spiral, if it was kind of like a bowl of spaghetti.
Okay?
Well, I think that was the Bible more. I don't know. That's just how my brain is kind of.
If all the spaghetti noodles were tied together at the end, that makes perfect sense. Okay. Yeah.
I can.
It just, I say that to say, even though it looks like there's no way these are related, they are related. They are, it always comes back to Jesus. It's always tied to him somehow, some way.
Like a cinnamon.
Or a spiral. What shape is the cinnamon roll? Spiral. We are talking food. Okay, the cinnamon rolls. Okay. So Methodism is a hamburger, and agency is a cinnamon roll. There you go. Mia.
So like, can you give like one more example as like when we
Yes.
like method and no versus like when we should be using?
Yes. We all go to a play, right? Like a classic, like theater play. Eden's killing it, bro. She's like got the lead role. She's doing her thing. We all go to this play. I walk in 20 minutes late. I know it's crazy to think. I'm never late to anything, but I walk in 20 minutes late to this thing. Okay. I go in and I find my seat and I sit down, and I ask Mia. I say, Mia, what did I miss? And Mia said, what happened in the play before I got here? That's what I'm asking, right? What I missed. Mia says, well, the stage is built out of wood. And they got the frames together, and there's little pieces of concrete that hold the stage in place, and they built out the frame. Then they put big pieces of wood on top of it so that people could walk on it, and then they painted it black. Well, Mia, what are you talking about? That's not... And then you look at me and you say, well, you can't have a play without a stage. Oh, okay. So I'm like, me is useless. I turn to my right. I go, Brad, what did I miss before I came in here? You go, well, someone was in charge of deciding who was going to get the lead role and who was going to get all the other roles. Who's going to be the lead and who's going to be trees 1 through 7. Someone was in charge of that. And there was a whole event where the people came up and they auditioned and they tried out. And then this person decided, Eden's going to be the lead. This person's going to be tree 7. This person's going to be, what are you talking about? And you look at me and you say, well, you can't have a play without a cast. I turn to the person behind you. Guys get where I'm going here. Finally, I turn to Will. I say, Will, when the curtain opened till now, what happened? Right? Now I'm getting the information that I want. But what was Brad and Mia answering me with?
Wait, didn't that?
What type of method or agency? What were they giving me? Method. I'm not asking for method. I'm asking for agency. I'm asking for why is the play happening? What's happening inside of the play? Now, is Brad wrong? No. Is Mia wrong? But it's not what I'm looking for. In the play, curtain open to curtain close is not trying to communicate method. It's trying to communicate agency. Make sense? You tracking with me? This clocking? You guys clocking with this?
Yeah.
Is this discussion fruitful for everyone?
It was that. Then you're asking about mechanism and method, and it was like good.
It's pretty much the same thing. Method is like more like how something works, and then mechanism is like we built the stage out of wood. Mechanism is like wood. Like that is the thing we built it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. You guys tracking with me? Tracking with me. Okay, this is good. These are good questions because we need to understand this. We really need to understand what agency is. So I'm looking in the room. I'm saying Brad has agency over this room. Brad gets to control the purpose of this room. And I don't get to look at Brad and say, well, what's the floor made out of? Brad's like, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to control what's going on in this ring. Tracking? Yeah. Everybody? Questions so far? I know this is it's not a lot, but it's maybe just a way of thinking we're not stupid if we're used to. And that's good because low-key we've kind of been trained to read the Bible in a way that it's not really meant to be read. And it doesn't mean your faith is in shambles. You guys have profound, deep understanding of the scriptures, and we can get more out of it. Who wants to understand the scriptures more or less? Right? We want to understand them more. So that's what we're trying to do. Make sense? Okay. All right. Think about this. I'm going to use this analogy that the whole breakdown series. So you guys got to think about this. Everybody has a backpack. Everybody put your backpack. Everybody's got their backpack, right? Some of you guys, got the one strap backpack. Some of you guys, you like MLA format backpack. Some of you guys got the one that's $300 for some reason backpack. Everybody's got a backpack, okay? On your backpack, it says creation, okay? Your backpack is labeled. Everybody look at their backpack. What's it say on it? It says creation, okay? Now, I look at Mitch. I go, oh, Mitch, I got a backpack that says creation. You got a backpack that says creation. High five, dap them up. We believe in creation. Well, what's the problem?
The context and reading, they can be different.
I don't know what's in his backpack. He's just calling it the same thing I am. Make sense? So what we need to do is we're going to be good time travelers. We're going to put our backpacks on the table. We're going to unzip them, and we're going to see what's in there. And to be good time travelers, we're going to take stuff out. And we're going to put stuff in because we want our backpack to match an ancient Israel backpack. To understand, to have what we need to have for the rest of our journey. Make sense? Is that an analogy track or is that just complete nonsense?
Fine.
Okay.
Elaborate on it.
I don't know, yeah.
Okay, so I say creation, you say creation. Our backpacks are the same, they're labeled the same. But what you put in your backpack is different than what I put in my backpack. So even right now in this room, when I say the word creation, all of you have a different understanding of what creation is. And the Bible has a certain understanding of what creation is. If I looked at all of you and I said, paint this Coke Zero can, you would all paint it differently. But we'd all call it Coke Zero can. But in my mind, I have a certain way you're supposed to paint it. But I haven't told you, or you don't understand me. Make sense? Okay, so that's what the Bible is. We want to understand what the Bible says when it says paint this Coke Zero can. Tracking?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Like we said at the beginning, I don't want to teach you guys the right information. I want to teach you guys how to get the right information, what the process is, what the journey is, how do I think through things. Because what's going to happen inevitably in your life is someone's going to come along that has thought about something more than you have, and they're going to push back on you. And what I've seen in my personal life over and over and over is people fall over when they get pushed because they got no legs to stand on. They don't know how to think critically. They don't know how to get the right information. The person that is talking to them makes a lot of sense. And I want to be a rational person. I want to make sure I'm not in a cult. I want to make sure that I believe in a God that's a real God and has, genuine things to say about me and about the world. And if someone comes along me and says, no, actually, your God's wrong and this God's right and this says this and this means this, that's a really easy trap to fall for if I don't know what's going on and if I don't know how to think through things. Make sense? So when we're going to do a case study, and I promise we're going to get into Genesis. When someone comes along to you and they say, I don't believe in the Bible because Paul, in the New Testament, not the weird section, in the New Testament, tells women to shut up in churches. You guys know about this passage?
Yes, but with that practice was bad.
No. Sorry.
People did.
I forget the exact passage. I should have wrote it down.
Like, enemy tripping.
Yeah. Okay, so 1 Corinthians, turn your Bibles. We're an hour in. We're just now opening our Bibles. Turn to 1 Corinthians 14.
No idea.
And
You don't
1 Corinthians
comes
yeah.
14:34.
That damn it was
Yeah, we'll do 34 through 35.
34 start.
really sits in all 50. Look at the thing.
14. 15.
And it
14.
the team that's on it baby.
You guys there?
It's like in 40
Maybe school one.
34.
First Corinthians.
I'm Roman.
What?
You probably got to be in the right phrase that was it.
I think it's hot.
And Colin comes in. It's fitting with your part. They're a bit worse. But you just like, why don't you do typical higher tats?
So women should be sad. I agree.
Very independent.
Off it, then it is.
You guys there?
Yeah.
Okay, what's it say? Who wants to read it first? Actually, just to break the trend, which female in this room wants to read this from us?
I will.
Mia? Okay.
30, 40, 35.
Yep.
Shem. The women should keep silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the law also says. If there is anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church.
Then
Okay. Women? You guys speak in church? True or false?
True.
Zoe is one of your directors, you're one of your leaders, true or false?
True.
Jocelyn is one of your leaders, true or false?
True.
You guys all have life group leaders that are girls, true or false? Christy Kier speaks in the main services at Grace Church every once in a while, true or false? Every once in a while, yes, true. Sunny Gresslock does hosting and announcements, true or false?
so
Lauren Radel, Delaney Ferguson will preach to you while they sing, true or false? Okay? So is Grace Church a heretical church that we should all stop attending?
wait, what is going on? Tracy here is gonna main sir.
It's been a minute, but yeah,
That's on.
because it's not her job. But what's the problem? Is Grace Church a church of heresy?
Definitely.
No. Is Grace Church a church of blasphemy? Does Grace Church believe in the authority of the Bible? Clearly not,
Context.
right? So don't just say context, show me context. What is going on here? Because, hang on, before you guys move on, let's look. Let's look at what Paul says. Does Paul know what he's talking about? Yes. Most of our theology comes directly from Paul. Paul does the theology based on what Jesus does and what he learns from the disciples. but he's the guy that puts it into the vocabulary that we know today more often than not. Women should be silent during the church meetings. It is not proper for them to speak. They should be submissive just as the law says. What's the law say? What's the law?
Humility.
The law is the Torah.
Yeah.
The law is the Torah. So not only is Paul saying, this is not my opinion, the Old Testament Torah says the same thing. Wait a second. Paul's like doubling down on this claim. So he says not just that, but how the Torah said. If they have any questions, they should ask their husbands at home, for it is improper for women to speak in church meetings. Okay. Christian women that go to Grace Church. And Grace Church is, we thought, a Bible-believing and teaching church, but we have women speak all the time. What's going on here? Mitch?
At the top of my thing, the passage of this specifically says it's called orderly worship, and it's like he goes on saying like certain people are meant to prophesy and worship and whatnot. It's saying the law specifically is saying that women should be submissive to missing Paul saying like go according to the law and specific to the church.
We're on the right track. We're on the right spaghetti noodle. But I'm no advocate of the devil, but let me do this. Were these headers biblical, original?
No.
No. So how do I know? Some dude way back when didn't want to make his wife mad and just like added this in. Okay, how do I know that? So Mitch is on the right spaghetti noodle, but we're not there yet. Keep going, yeah.
I don't know if this is true.
We'll find out.
I heard when I was talking to some people about like I think there's one in Timothy that
Oh, the one in Timothy is worse.
I think I was talking to someone about that one and they were talking about how like women didn't get proper education back in the day, and so they were like spewing all these false things about the Bible. And so like they were just like women shouldn't like teach about the Bible to they're not educated and be like.
So we're on the right spaghetti noodle, and here's, not only does Paul say this, he doubles down on it on another letter to Timothy. He says, let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. Wait, Mitch and Will and Brad and all you guys, when you go to merge, who's in charge of you there? Josh and Zoe. Yeah, are they women? Yeah, pretty sure.
David.
Yeah, so what's going on there? Do we need to revolt? What's happening here? Tia?
Well, I don't know if this is like exactly what you're talking about, but like the church that like they're to like know about the church, and that church is, I don't know if it was the one in Corinth, but like the like pagan god was like Artemis or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that God like says that like women were better than men, if like that men are like nothing, and like it basically made all of the women like it's like the god of fertility.
Yeah.
And so basically the women were like trying to like take power over the men, and like they didn't know since like the biblical like whatever. So like he's saying like in the context of these churches,
Because having that culture.
Yeah. So Tia makes a great point. What did Tia just do?
And submit.
Not exegesis. Context, but what kind of context specifically? Cultural, historical context. Okay? So those are two great layers of context, cultural and historical context, that we need to understand what's going on. If I turn to you and I say, dude, this president sucks, right away, we just put cultural and historical context because who's our president right now? Donnie J. If we wrote that down 100 years from now and someone reads what I said, they have to do the work of cultural and historical context. Well, am I saying every president sucks? And I'm not making a political stance, by the way. I'm just throwing out an example. Am I saying that every president sucks? Am I saying that the former president sucks or the past president sucks? No, I'm talking about a specific person at a specific time in a specific culture. There are multiple presidents around the world. I hope you guys know that, right? So the reader 100 years from now needs to figure out, oh, I'm an American living in 2026. Who is the president? Now I know who this person is talking about, okay? So what Tia brought up is cultural and historical context. What were you going to say, Danny?
Well, maybe you're one, but I read forth a little bit and
Hey, time out. Stop prefacing your statements with dumb things. Just say it.
okay.
I referred a little bit, and Paul says, therefore, my brothers and sisters, be eager to prophesy, and do not forbid speaking in tongues, but everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. Yeah, I know. I took that as like, it's about the purpose and what you're saying, and that it shouldn't, like, it says it should be done in a fitting and orderly way. And
Yeah, read that again.
therefore, my brothers and sisters,
Pause. What did it say? Brothers and sisters. Our sisters, girls. Yeah, so wait, is Paul schizophrenic? Has he lost his mind? Because I know that in Romans 16, he tells people to listen to Phoebe, who's a girl. And I know in Acts 18, he tells them listen to Priscilla, who's a girl. I know in Romans 16, he tells them to listen to Junia, who is a girl. And women get mentioned multiple times by Paul, the exact same author, in different sections. So what am I missing here? What kind of context?
Cultural context.
One more. Not culture, not historical, a different kind. What's this? The biblical context. Okay? So culture and historical is good to understand. The best thing I'm looking for is biblical context. I want the Bible to interpret the Bible. Make sense? Because otherwise I'm superimposing things. Culture and historical is good to understand, but the thing I want to look for the most is biblical context. So my biblical context is what? I'm not just reading one verse. What am I reading? I need to read the paragraph. I need to read the chapter. I need to read the whole book. And I forget who said it, but 1 Corinthians is struggling with this issue that Paul brings up, that these women who have been newly empowered by the gospel of Jesus Christ, women were not valued back in the day. But Jesus comes around and says, no, everybody's valued. Everybody's equal, even slaves, Jews, Greeks, Gentiles, male or female. Paul himself says there's no more male or female. There's just those who are in Jesus Christ. So women are now empowered to speak in their church, which they haven't been before. They're empowered to lead, which they haven't been before. And to Tia's point, they take it too far. So Paul is talking to who in this book? He's talking to the church in Corinth, a very specific group of people, because the Bible is not written to you. It's written for you. And the Bible's written to me. No women's allowed to talk anymore. And Paul's a schizophrenic because other places he tells me that women are allowed to talk. So I need to understand the culture. I need to understand the context. You guys get where I'm going with this? So here's what's going to happen in you guys' life. And why I brought this up is a specific reason. This exact example and many others are going to get thrown in your face. Because what someone who doesn't believe in Jesus is going to do is they're going to just read a verse. And it's not going to make sense because it's ripped out of its context. They're going to think that Darth Vader's a good father. And they're going to throw it right back at you. And if you don't know where the context is or how to find out the context, you're going to be stumped because they beat you. They got you. And that's going to take you somewhere that you don't want to be with your faith. Does this make sense? Everybody track with me. So we did this little exercise because I wanted to kind of get your gears turning on how do I find the right context? How do I do those type of things? The key phrase, remember, finding context is just zoom out. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. So I can get the whole picture in my mind instead of just zooming straight in and I only see maybe a little grape. I miss the fact that we're in a grocery store when I'm outside of here. And I think grape is the only thing that matters in the whole world, that I'm not looking at the whole picture. Tracking? All right. With that being said, now we can go to Genesis. All right, sweet. So we're going to go to Genesis 1.
Genesis.
Genesis 1. All right, just as a spoiler, guys, just because I think it's cool and I can't help it. What is at the center of everything in the Bible?
Wisdom.
Jesus, yes, but a recurring theme. If I haven't done it with every part of the Bible, but I'm working on it. So far, every part of the Bible ends up back in Genesis somehow. So what does that tell you about, remember we talked about like method and agency? What should that tell you about the Genesis 1/2/3 narratives? Pretty dang important, especially when it comes to agency, when it comes to why do things work? What is the purpose of things? What is the purpose of me? And remember, we're supposed to look at patterns, and we're supposed to look at when patterns break. That's supposed to trigger things in my brain. What happens in Genesis in terms of all of that? Sin. You're just stalling stuff out. You're just saying stuff. He's right, though, which makes me mad. Right? What happens in Genesis, as we'll see, is Genesis like 1-3-ish basically says, this is how human beings work. This is their purpose. This is the pattern. And this is where it breaks. And this is where God steps in and redeems. And that purpose and pattern is going to repeat itself over and over and over and over again. So if I am a 21st century American Christian, and I want to know how I work, how other people work, what can I look at? I can look at Genesis. Because what's cool about Genesis is it doesn't just zoom in on necessarily one particular person and you get to know one particular person, although it does do that. What it zooms in on is the motive of one person, of how one person works. And then that person represents all of us. So I get to look at Adam and I get to look at Eve and I say, the same things that they do and they think, I'm going to be faced with doing and thinking. And I can learn from their mistakes. If you guys know the story of Cain, God shows up to Cain and says, hey, time out. Remember your parents? Remember how that went down? Sin is crouching at your door. It wants to rule over you. But unlike your parents, you should rule over it. But Cain doesn't do it. And things get even worse. It's this pattern. It repeats itself over and over and over. And what is one thing that I should look at in the Bible that means something is important? What's something in the Bible that means something is important? I said that weird. Repetition. So we're going to see that all over the place, okay? So right away, I look at Genesis. You guys there? By the way, we're going to read through some of this. If you have a translation variation, point that out right away. Just stop us right away because that's something to look at. But we're going to be at Genesis. Before we read Genesis, what should we do? Pray. What should we do? What's like the most important thing here? Context, right? Context. So I need to know where Genesis is in its context, okay? Good job, Mia. Good job. In terms of genre, what is Genesis not? Genesis is not science. That's not what it is, okay? And whether you agree with that cognitively, your deep subconscious is going to want to treat it like science. And you're going to run into a bunch of problems when you do that because it's not a science. What is Genesis communicating? Method or agency? Agency. There's a splash of method in there, right? How's God created things? Well, he speaks, right? There's a little bit of method, but then even right there, we're like, well, how does that work? You know, there's like another set of method in there. So it doesn't just moves right along because it's not what it's trying to communicate, okay? Just so you guys know, and we've said this a couple times, when the Bible wants to be crystal clear about something, it is crystal clear about it. God loves the world that he sent his son, so that if anyone believes in him, you will not die, you will have everlasting life. God did not send his son to condemn the world, but to save the world. There is no secret meaning. Crystal clear. That's how we know about Jesus. That's how we know what we're supposed to do. Paul, the wages of sin are death. Everyone deserves to die. No one's righteous. But the gift of God is eternal life. Crystal clear. No secret meaning in there. Because that's what it's trying to communicate, this crystal clear truth. Okay? So you're not, because you don't speak Hebrew or you didn't go to Bible school, you're not missing true salvation. Certain parts of Catholicism get into that mess where there's secret revelations. There's secret books of the Bible. Wrong. Not true. The Bible is very clear what it wants to be clear on, and it is ambiguous about things that it doesn't think are important for us right now. It's not what it's trying to get at, right? If Genesis wanted to make it super clear to you how the world came to be step by step by step, it would do that. But it's not what it's trying to do. What's Genesis trying to communicate? What's one thing Genesis is trying to communicate?
Why it exists and create.
Why it exists and who created it. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're going to see. So we got to put it into its context. We got to understand it's not a science book. And we have to understand what's some more context that we know about Genesis. We can remember while we read it. A little trickier for us, but as 21st century Americans, but all you guys from CBCA, you guys have been around, you know some stuff.
Yes, I'm the roast about is it right to
So Moses writes it down. What's that? It's a great question. How do we know he wrote it down? The earliest traditions of Christianity, or what we now call Christianity, held that belief. And there's different things that throughout Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, there's certain details in there that only Moses would know, right? So what's a detail only Moses would know? Think about the first 5 books of the Bible.
On Mount.
Yeah, so he's talking to God on Mount Sinai. Well, how do we know that dialogue? Right, there was one guy that was up there, right? So he either told someone that told someone that told someone that wrote it down, which is totally feasible, or he gets with the scribe. The scribe is a guy that writes things down, and they communicate that with him, okay? So somehow, Moses receives a revelation from God about Genesis and about how all this happens, or this oral tradition gets passed down to him, and he's the guy that's like, okay, we're going to write this down now. Does it make sense? So Moses is not spawned into Genesis and is like, whoa, what's going on? You know what I mean? Oral tradition, that's part of our context, oral history, meaning that the ancient Israel and the Jews, everything that they would communicate was like through a story. Tell a story, tell a story, tell a story, which makes a lot of sense because what's a lot of the things that are happening in Genesis? A lot of it's story, a lot of it's narrative, right? So that fits into our cultural, historical, and biblical context. And then what you'll see will happen is it will like flip from story to like, here's a bunch of rules. Well, what just happened here? Well, we had our oral tradition of stories, and God wrote these rules down. So, we have these rules right here. Tracking? Tracking? Okay. We got a little bit of biblical context. So it's a part of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. That's what everybody would have had. When you read your Bible, even the New Testament, everybody has the Torah and the prophets. That's the information that they have written down. That's what's in their library. The New Testament is being played out in real time. So not everybody has that. What will happen is they'll get like the eyewitness accounts of Jesus and all that kind of stuff, and they'll start to write that down. But we need to make sure that we're not superimposing our understanding of the New Testament onto the Torah because it's not always there. Is making sense what I'm saying? So okay, we'll get there when we get there. But what other kind of context do we need to understand here?
For a lot of this is just, it's like nobody, I think you talked about this earlier in Jonah, but just looking at any other books, like you have the context of the riches that they had the Torah and the prophets, but before this, it's just
Yeah, so it's
thing before this.
Yeah. So its context is God. The thing that happens before Genesis is God. Now, this is a little tricky. Are there stories in the Bible that happen before creation?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, right? So this creation is accounting for what kind of creation?
on the earth? Like,
Everything we know, everything us is our human plane in understanding. Okay, are there non-human things that exist? Right. So there is, again, it's not super duper clear because it's not super duper important, but there are other things that kind of happen somewhere in this story. Okay, so in Revelations, you get some of these images of Satan being cast out and there's a rebellion and there's all these things that happen. That is, you can like overlap them happening somewhere in here. We're not sure where because it's not important where, but that is happening at the same time. Does this make sense? So I bring this up because as we go through our breakdown series, what you'll see is when there's a human rebellion, there's a spiritual rebellion right on top of it. Those things are way more interconnected than we like to think that they are. And they're always overlapped with each other because, as Paul says, our battle is not of flesh and blood, but it's of forces of the unseen realm. These unseen realm is like demonic / evil angelic / divine beings are way more overlapped with us than we like to think. Tia?
so it, this can't, it's not.
Just, guys, stop prefacing your question. Just say stuff.
So like, all before Revelations, like, nobody really knew, like, it's not, I should say, no way, but like that Satan fell out of heaven and was like, he used to be an angel. Did they?
What's the question here?
Like you were saying that in Revelations it tells us the background of Genesis, but until Revelations, nobody knew the background of Genesis.
Until Revelations, nobody knows the background of child.
No, what? How did that?
Or did they just
How did I not find out?
look out to know that? Well, God
It's-
showed. I don't think.
Who wrote Revelations? Who has crazy visions all the time? John, right? So I get what you're saying. In this, is he called Satan in the Genesis count?
I don't know.
He's called serpent, right? So they know this is like the bad guy, but the language isn't always the same because the writings are coming at different times. So what's written first, Genesis or Revelations? But they overlap with each other, right? So God gives different understandings to different people at different times. We as first century Americans get to look and say, oh yeah, they overlap with each other. But the author of Genesis is not aware of the author of Revelations. So the vocabulary will get mixed up, but they're talking about the same things. So even there, it's a great question, a great thing to bring up. Even there, what did we just do? We superimposed our understanding onto Genesis because we have Revelations and we've read Revelations. The author of Genesis doesn't know anything about Revelations. Now, who's the ultimate author? Right. So God knows about this and he knows about that, and he gives little tidbits here and there. Does that mean that the author of Genesis fully understands the revelation that happened or the revolt that happened in Revelation? No, but all of a sudden we know there's a good, perfect garden and there's a crafty snake out of nowhere.
Can I add? There's also like text in Isaiah that would like kind of give you like if you knew Revelation, you'd know Isaiah is talking about this story of Satan falling out of heaven. So there's all throughout the Bible that happens. There's like little snippets of like insight that God gives the authors that all kind of connect. But like in that particular moment of time, that author wouldn't necessarily realize
Right.
God's talking about this event. But you know, now that we can see the bigger picture, we know. Does that make sense?
So it's
So did the author of Genesis or did the author of Isaiah or whatever know that Satan fell from heaven the way he did? No, probably not. But like,
but they know he's here now.
Yeah.
They know there's a master of evil force in the world that gets called different things throughout time as different things get revealed. Right? So I know it's corny, but like if you think about like Star Wars, you get the original 3, then you get the prequels. And us as the viewer, we've seen all of them. Well, maybe not, but I've seen all of them. And I get to now look at this and understand, oh, I see how Anakin's becoming Darth Vader because I know Anakin becomes Darth Vader. You know what I mean? Because I've seen these other ones. What we need to be careful to do is not superimpose these things onto these other things. But we still have our different understandings because we know the full picture. Make sense? Tracking? Good question. Great question. Is there more? There can be more.
still have to, I don't know if it was like, because I know what you're saying, but like, I don't really know what like I'm trying to ask, but like, you have a,
There's more, but you don't know how to say it.
Kinda.
Okay, you want to just sit on it, see if you can figure it out, or you want to workshop it right now?
is there a way that we should read this? Because in Revelations, like, Genesis has like, nobody until Revelations knew about this. So like, was there a certain way that we should read this because we don't know this?
How? Yeah. How should we read this?
I guess
How should we read this, right? That's the question?
Yeah.
This is a great question. You guys tell me.
There's the information that the people that had this book and given up at times, they only had the Torah and the prophets, so they didn't have.
No, you're on it. My original reading of this, I want to be as close to as the original reading that the ancients would have read it as. And then what I have the advantage of doing, and you guys have the advantage of doing, is after I have that level of understanding, I can add another one on top of it because I do have Revelations. But before I add it, I need to go read Revelations and read it at that level of understanding so that they mesh together correctly. Make sense?
so. Yeah. So like in Bible study, some people use like a soap method. I've used talked about that, friend. That if you read a piece of scripture, let's read some in Genesis. S. O is observation, which is simply just what does this text say plainly. Don't impose with what you know about what do these words say. Period. Right. The next layer is application A, which is where you do the like, okay, I know all these pieces. How does this apply and what does this mean? Right, like, does that make sense? So like we're in a phase of like we're just observing what the text says right now. Well, just without
What it is.
without anything else. Just like what do these words in this context mean? Right?
But can you truly read something without adding your own bias on top of it? Not really. So kind of the point of this, one of the points of what we're doing here, is we want to work super extra hard the other way to get our bias out and understand what the ancients would have read it as and understood it as. So reading it plainly, that's like 100% what we should do. And also, you reading it plainly comes with a different set of understandings, and an ancient Israelite person reading it plainly comes with a different set of understandings. So again, our plain reading of it gives us insights into the Bible, into God, where you're not ashamed for reading your Bible as a 21st century American. That's not at all. We talked about that a ton at the beginning. But what I super want to do is get a new level of understanding by trying to understand how the ancients would have originally read it and where those two things clash. Because a lot of times my beef with God is actually my 21st century American morals coming into conflict with ancient Middle Eastern Israelite morals. Tracking?
Yeah.
And what we're tempted to do all the time is read it, get my thing, jump straight to application, where I missed out on the observation and the interpretation and all the things that are going into that. Because I just want to know how, I want to get my verse of the day and apply it to my life today and then get a new one tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with verse of the day, but that's a bad way to read your Bible. Because you can't just read a verse, right? We got to read the whole thing. We got to understand the whole thing at least. Cool? Okay. Right here today, true or false, there are more than one cultures that exist.
Sure.
True. Okay. True or false? When I read Genesis chapter 1, there are more than one cultures that exist.
First.
Not a trick question. Yeah, true. Yeah, true, right? So what culture is Genesis 1 being written to / in? No, just to, sorry. What culture is Genesis 1 being written to? Moses is a culture, yes. What's Moses' culture? Ancient Middle Eastern Israelites. That's that culture that this book is first being introduced to, okay? Are there other cultures around ancient Middle Eastern Israelites? What are some of these cultures? Egyptian. Excellent. What's another one? Philistine. What's another one? Babylonian. Okay, Babylon, okay? Great examples. True or false? Those cultures have their own Genesis accounts.
Yes.
True. Israel, I think a lot of times we read the Bible, Israel's the only people that exist, and then all of a sudden these bad guys show up and take them out. But the good guys gotta, let's not necessarily what's happening. The world still exists. Read the Bible with color. Like, let's understand it truly where it really is, okay? So with that in mind, this kind of changes how I read Genesis, because instead of thinking that this is just the first account and the only account that ever existed, if I understand there's different cultures that have different understandings of how things exist, I'm going to read Genesis slightly differently. Now, this is where I went to school so you didn't have to, comes into play. The Genesis account, Genesis 1, 2, and 3, especially Genesis 1, are in discussion with Babylonian culture and Egyptian culture. It's talking to them. It's saying something different to them, okay? So Egyptian culture and Babylonian culture, they have their own creation story, their own idea of where things come from. And this Genesis account, the Israelite creation story, is talking to those two cultures. And there's going to be some overlap and there's going to be some differences. And what are things that we need to look for when we read the Bible? Patterns, repetitions, and breakage in patterns. That's something I should look for when a pattern breaks, okay? So you're not first century. Oh, okay, goodbye. No, you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Bye, Mia. It's okay. Those things are in Bye, Zoe. Those things are in discussion with each other. So we don't get to just look at Genesis and say, yep, that's what everyone believed at the time. If we want to get to a newer level of understanding, I'm not going to say deeper level of understanding because that's misleading. If I want to get to a new level of understanding, I need to know how the other cultures understand creation as well. Does this make sense? So we live in this world today, right? You guys are Christians. What is your culture of creation? What's your story? What's your creation story? What is your creation story? How do you believe things came to be?
I don't know how to explain. It's maybe
Would it be Genesis 1? Would that be your creation story? Who created everything? Right, and he created them in 7 days, and you probably believe that was a literal 24-hour period, and you probably believe there's a select order of doing that, and you believe that God spoke all these things into existence. Yeah, we all kind of believe this thing, same thing. Okay, in your culture today, what is someone that has a different creation story? What does an atheist think? Big Bang, primordial soup, things evolved, all these type of things. Okay, so guys, we need to understand we're not that special. We need to understand we're not that special. Genesis, ancient Israel, they have people that believe different things, and they're talking to them too. So you and me would talk to an atheist, and we'd be in very contrast with each other, but we would agree on some things. What are some things that you and an atheist agree on?
They had like a start.
There's a start.
and
What are some other things?
We are.
We are a lot. Genuinely, we exist. What's another thing?
in a sense that things evolve.
That things evolve, in a sense. Here's a big one. This is real life. Yeah, I know it's kind of weird to think about, but you and an atheist agree that this is real life. There's a beginning and there's an end, and what matters in between matters. We agree on these things. We just don't agree on how it came to be or what matters in the in-betweens. You guys tracking? So the same thing is, you tracking? Okay, the same thing, sorry, you looked a little confused. Same thing is happening here. So if I want to best understand what's happening in my Genesis account, I want to start to understand what the other cultures think and what they believe in. Because if I'm talking to an atheist and I start talking about the creation story, I'm going to say, you and me agree that we started from nothing and something happened and here we are. You believe in the Big Bang, I just believe in who banged it. Like, I just know who started the whole thing. It was actually a very precise choice of words. You guys are going to remember that forever. That's a Sean McDowell clip.
No, that's shit that I'm
You guys are just going to, because think about it. Someone that believes in the Big Bang, all of a sudden there was nothing, and then it did. And then all of a sudden it evolved, and bang, life came in to happen. What happens in Genesis? In the beginning, God created. Bang, life comes into existence. So same thing, we're just looking at two different people. You guys tracking me? You're seeing this. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I went to school, so you guys don't have to. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of Egyptian. It's called cosmology. You guys have a cosmology. It's how you believe things exist, like what you believe about the cosmos, cosmology. Okay? Egyptian cosmology and Babylonian cosmology, because those are the two primary cultures that are existing in and around Israel at this time. And this Genesis account is in direct communication. It's talking to Babylon and to Egypt. It's going at them on purpose. We just don't understand it because we don't understand our context. We don't understand Egyptian and Babylonian context. Okay? So this is a very short synopsis. Egyptian cosmology believed that the world began with chaotic ocean. Okay? So we talked about this a little bit. When you guys think of nothing, what do you think of?
It's like
What do you think of?
darkness.
Darkness. Is darkness a thing? Yes. Okay, so think of nothing. You can't do it. Why can you not think of nothing?
It's a comic book, so
You've never experienced nothing, so you have no idea what it is. Right? I know it sounds a little silly, but in our understanding of creation, what was there before creation? Nothing. Which is what? All things. Right? So we don't even believe what we say we believe. We can't do it. Okay? The ancients have a different understanding of nothing, because no one can truly believe in nothing because there's always something. You guys make sense with me? So instead of darkness, what you and me would think of as like the void of space is like nothing. That's what you and me would think of. Are you guys, you good over there? Cosmology. Cosmetology is like a haircut.
Nice.
That's a haircut. Cosmology.
Come to the eyes too, man. This one wants to eat it.
Yes. Okay. So the Egyptian belief, instead of thinking of darkness and in space, they think chaotic water. That's their nothing. Does this make sense? I know it's a little trippy to think about, but that's their version of nothing because no one could truly think of nothing, right? Same thing with Babylon. Their understanding of nothing, that the pre-created order of things, the pre-creation state, is chaotic waters everywhere. Everywhere. Tracking with me? Bless you.
Contained in a world.
So think about the way that they would think. They don't know the stars the way that we do. They've never been to the moon. They don't know. We're presupposing all these ideas on them. All they know is the Earth. That's all they know, and the moon and the sun and stars. That's all they know. They don't necessarily understand. It's not until much later we start to understand that there's planets and that there's all these other things. And it's not until a couple hundred years ago we discovered there's other galaxies. And now you and me sit on third base when it comes to cosmology because we've understood all these things over the course of time. These guys don't understand those things. They just don't know what they don't know, right? So all they know is Earth, moon, sun, stars. That's it. So when they think of everything, when I say God created everything, you and me immediately think of space. We think of Jupiter. We think of all that stuff that goes out there. That's not what they think. They think of the Earth because the Earth is everything to them, and the sun and the moon and the stars. Okay? So their world is what? The Earth. Their world, their everything, their creation is chaotic waters. It's nothing. Make sense? I know it's a little, I'm trying to download thousands of years of ancient understanding in 20 minutes. Are you starting to understand this a little bit?
What's the difference, though? Did you not just say intellect believed in it was chaotic water?
Yeah, they both, we'll get there. So they both believe in chaotic water. Egyptian cosmology, they called it Nun, if you really want to go there. A creator god emerges from these waters and brings order to things. Okay? So there's nothing, and all of a sudden, there's something. There's someone. It's one of their deities, one of their gods, and he starts to create order. Actually, she starts to create order about things. The sky is then created out of another goddess, Nut. This is Egyptian cosmology. This is how you think of things, right? So this one god comes out. I forget his name, to be honest. Nun. He comes out and he says, yep, I create the sky. I create Nut, the sky goddess. So now there's this sky goddess. You tracking with me? And in every picture, you guys can look this up. She is kind of like the atmosphere. She's doing some weird yoga pose over the land, over the water, and she's the one that controls the sky. It's just how it's. Don't laugh because we think silly things too. Then Nun creates the earth, the land. There's a dude named Gib. He's a cool dude. So Nut is doing some yoga pose on top of Geb. So Geb is the land, and Nut is the arch. You guys getting this picture? Okay, what in there right away is part of their cosmology that's not part of ours? Multiple gods, and what else? Think about the shape. You get Geb, and you have Nut. It's flat. The earth is flat. Okay? There's not a concept of round earth yet, right? So the earth is flat, which is really interesting because multiple times in the Bible it goes out of its way to indicate the earth is round. Which, how do they get that understanding? Well, God gives them that understanding, okay? So you got Geb, you got Nut making this whole thing, and Nun is the dude running the show. And then he makes more gods. He makes the god of the sun, the moon, the stars, and then there's the god of the sea. The animals themselves then are divine beings, which makes sense because think about Egyptian gods. What are they often depicted of? They're animals, right? So a lot of the gods are animals, and that makes sense because in their creation narrative, the ruler god makes all these other gods that look like animals. But they're not animals, they're gods. Make sense? You guys tracking? Okay. So think about this Egyptian cosmology. There's a creator god that creates everything else. Sound familiar? Yep, we share something like that. What's one of the major differences in terms of how things are created in Egyptian cosmology versus in Genesis? Yeah.
The God just like came out with the water.
Yeah. So what existed before the God? The water. Right? So that's a big difference. Another big difference is as this God is creating other things, what is he creating? He's creating other gods. Okay? What does Yahweh do? He doesn't create other gods. He creates things. He puts them in the proper place. They're on a different level than Egyptian. So Egyptian is going to elevate a cat way over here, and Yahweh God's going to say, no, a cat's down here. You guys tracking these differences? So we need to look at similarities. The waters, that's very similar. Creation, there's one person that runs the whole thing, similarities, but there's major differences. And that's where the Genesis account gets into these major differences to point things out. It says, no. It's not how Nun runs it. It's how Yahweh runs it. Remember, every culture has their God and their beliefs and how things work. And Israel is supposed to be very different amongst their people. That's part of Leviticus and Numbers. We'll get into all of that. They're very, very different. And one of the things that's very different about them is our God did not create other gods. Our God is God. Hook, line, and sinker, we're done. Every other cosmology has all these other gods in this other order, and there's like a top dog God. Make sense? Tracking? So there's a little bit of Egyptian cosmology. And then here's the thing that is probably the biggest difference. Nun eventually creates humans, but in Egyptian cosmology, humans, it's long story short, the gods get into a fight. In Egyptian cosmology, there's like uppercase gods and there's lowercase gods. And the lowercase gods get mad at the uppercase gods. So what they do is they sacrifice an uppercase god to kill him. And out of his blood and clay come humans, which are servants to the lowercase gods. This making sense a little bit? So who's like the chief god? Nun. And then Nun creates animals, which are what? Gods. And those gods are the lower class gods. And then humans are under them. So who do humans serve in this? Animals. What? Okay, Genesis is very different because who's in charge of the animals in Genesis? Humans. That's on purpose. It's trying to get you to see things, trying to get you to think differently. Okay. And then what is human beings' creation purpose in Egyptian cosmology? To serve the other gods, to do the dirty work of the other gods. So humanity exists primarily to serve gods by maintaining the temples and providing offerings. So in Egyptian cosmology, humans are little stupid, annoying insects that build temples and do sacrifices, and that's all they're supposed to do. That's their purpose. Very different in Genesis. What's a human's purpose in Genesis? To cultivate the land, to work with God. It's very different understanding. And that's very much so on purpose, very much so by design, okay? I'll go through this one quickly, but this is Babylonian cosmology, pretty similar. If you guys have heard of the Enuma Elish, it just is like Babylonians' version of Genesis. People will claim that Genesis stole from the Enuma Elish, and that's not true. There's overlap on purpose, because that's how Hebrew writers do things. They overlap things to show similarities, and then they break away from the patterns to show differences. You guys tracking on that? Okay, so the Enuma Elish happens. In the beginning, there's chaotic waters. But there are two different types of waters. There is the god Apsu, who is the god of fresh water, and there's Tiamat, who is the god of salt water. Creation happens when these two gods get into a violent conflict with each other. So they fight, and through their fighting, things start to be created somehow. Again, I'm really condensing thousands of years of cosmology. Eventually, there's this god named Marduk, that shows up, and what he does is he fights Tiamat, which is salt water, which is like evil water, right? And then there's like fresh water, which is like good water, and they like fight each other for some reason. Because what does big bad salt water represent?
The fun.
Untamed chaos water, the abyss of the ocean. That's the ultimate form of chaos, untamed things in the ancient world, okay? So you get Tiamat, who's salt water. She's this big bad ruler god, but she's like, kind of like, enslaving everybody else, so to speak. Marduk is a god and steps up and defeats Tiamat in like this, maybe we could read about it later, but there's like this epic battle that happens between Marduk and Tiamat. And Marduk splits Tiamat's body in two, and half of her body becomes the heavens. So think about that remember that Egyptian god is like arched over? That's half of Tiamat is arched over, is the heavens, the skies, and then the other half becomes the earth. So all of creation is what?
Body.
What? It's out of whose body? It's all still Tiamat. She's the, I know it's very, very interesting, very different to think about. She's the thing that is heaven and earth. She's still it. But what is she? What? She's dead. So think about this, guys. There's no life. There's no life. You guys gonna think like Babylonians and Egyptians. Don't just laugh at them. Think through. There's smart people. Some of the smartest people in the world were Egyptians. And what they're doing is taking these unbelievably complex concepts and boiling them down into one thing, into a God, into a person, so we can start to understand them. So what is different between I just gave it away. What's the difference between Genesis account of creation and Babylonian account? Alive. Oh, good job, guys. Yeah. God is very much so alive. Things give life. Things are ordered. Tiamat is just this dead thing that exists and kind of like holds everything in place. But really, Marduk is like the one that's in charge because he killed her and like put her where she needs to be. It's weird. And what happens is humans are created from the blood of a defeated God to become the slaves of gods doing their work. So what's similar between Egyptian cosmology and Babylonian cosmology in terms of humanity? They serve their God, but what kind of serving? Slavery, right? So they do random work that the gods don't want to do, okay? So that's a snapshot of ancient Babylonian and Egyptian cosmology. Questions? Do you understand why we went through all of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did somebody who understands it, why did we go through all of that? Yeah.
To show like the why Genesis is structured and explain why
Yes.
you have
We're understanding the cultures that Genesis was written in by understanding the other cultures that Genesis is around. Okay? So with all of that in mind, let's look at the very first line of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What's different automatically, right off the rip?
God created.
God created. And what is like the first 4 words? What's different from the other creation accounts?
And the earth.
It's like
They already
In the beginning, God. In the other stories, what exists first?
water.
Water. And then what happens?
God.
God comes out of it. In the Genesis account, knowing all of those things, it says, no. In the unknown chaos waters, before that, God created the heavens and the earth, the skies and the land. Now, and this is what your author does. It says God created everything. He created the skies and the land. Now, when God created the skies and the land, they were formless, empty, and darkness. This is kind of, I'm paraphrasing here to help us understand this. So look at Genesis 1, read along with me. In the beginning, God created the skies and the things above and the earth, the land and the things below. Now, when God created those things, the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, okay? So there's this pre-creation state that's explaining what's going on here. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. Tracking with me? What covers the deep waters? Darkness, okay? So in the creation state, it's dark and it's evil and it's chaos. There's this theme throughout the whole Bible of chaos waters, okay? The waters represent chaos and they represent death and they represent uncontrolled, they represent all these things, okay? So what's covering over the deep waters? Darkness, okay? You guys want to know a fun little Hebrew joke in here? It's a joke, dude. You get jokes in the Bible. I don't know if you guys know that. This is a little joke or a little jab at the other cultures. Deep waters in Hebrew is Tiamud. Sound like anything familiar? Tiamat. So it's ripping at Babylon right off the rip. So in the beginning, you think Tiamat's the man. God created Tiamud. You're a little stupid dude. God created him. So you're picking up on this, right?
Up there.
So why do I point this out to you guys? Why did we go through all these things?
because it's like talking to.
To understand that this is not just a one-off thing. Ben, hold the can, bro. It's not just a one-off thing. We're almost there. It's not just a one-off thing. It's in direct conversation with these other things. Israel is looking at Babylon and saying, yeah, the thing that you believe is wrong. Yahweh created Tiamat. Yahweh created your little dude. Yahweh did that. And when Yahweh did that, your little dude was controlled by nothingness. Because what hovers over Tiamat? Darkness, right? So your evil waters, your false god, your Tiamat is ruled by darkness, ruled by nothing, okay? And we keep going. Now, then the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. You want to know a little fun little Hebrew fact here? That last waters is a different word. So Tiamat is dark chaos waters that have no purpose and they have no control. This is a new word. I forget how to...
Maybe I told it about.
Well, I will say it in front of that. I forget what it is, but the Hebrew translation of this word is, now the waters are neutral. What's the difference between line 1 and line 2 that the waters turn from dark, evil, chaos to neutral waters? Well?
God's darkness come to the waters, and then the Spirit of God covered.
Spirit of God covers the waters, yeah.
So, do we even believe that it's even a water?
So what is water? Remember our ancient cosmology. We're good time travelers. We have our ancient cosmology. What's water? Nothing. Right? So when you and me think of nothing, what do we think about? Black, space, void. Well, that's still something, right? So when they think about nothing, they just think of waters. That's still something, right? Yeah, we're on the same page in terms of we just think of different things.
Yeah.
Make sense?
And first.
Genuinely, does that make sense? Yes. Okay. All right. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. So tough. So tough. Okay? So the Hebrew author here, Moses and the other guys, they're getting together and they're saying, man, how do we let these other cultures know that Yahweh is the God? Yahweh is the one they need to follow. Yahweh is the one that's in charge, and that we're different from them. We're not like them. We don't believe the same things that they believe necessarily. How do we let them know? Well, when there was chaos waters and your God emerged from that, my God created the chaos waters. This is the dialogue that they're having. The thing you think was nothing, my God created nothing. Which tells us what about God?
He's all
powerful and he existed before nothing. Which is like, that's a paradox. That's a thing that doesn't make sense, right? And it's very much so on purpose. That's what the Bible is communicating to you. Not only did he do that, God then created everything that you know. Yahweh then creates everything that you know. Everything above the heavens and everything below the earth. God created all of that. Now, God created it. It was formless and it was empty because darkness was over Tiamat. Darkness was over your God that you worship. And how do we know that darkness is over that? Well, A, we see it right here. And B, the Egyptian and Babylonian cosmologies, there's so much chaos and violence that are happening right on the rip, right? And then they would look and say, yeah, Marduk's our guy. Look what he did to Tiamat. He's so baller. And Israelites would come around and say, no, that was darkness, dude. That's not a thing to like flex about. That's a thing to be concerned about, Tia.
So, I was, look, I think to me, it's like, hell is just where God is. Basically.
Yes and no.
Kind of. God didn't create hell, correct? Or did?
He did.
Yeah.
Who did he create it for?
The Satan. Fault.
Yeah. So God did not create hell with the intent of sending humans there. He created it to send Satan and his demons to keep them captive there. And then any human that goes into hell goes there by their own free choice.
But I don't know, I was thinking, I was like, the waters, like they believe that like the waters were like unruly and like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like it said that like darkness covered the deep waters, like the waters were great. And that's like without God covering the surface and like control.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I was trying to like connect the two, like because like the absence of God is both.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a good thing to pick up on. When there is no presence of God, they're empty and they're formless and they're void and it's a wasteland. They're purposeless. There's nothing worth purpose that exists there. What do we see in hell? There's nothing worth good purpose that exists there. It's just where people suffer in their own bitterness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a one-for-one correlation there. We might be superimposing our understanding of hell onto there, but there is a little correlation of when there's no God, there's bad. Yeah, bitch.
So, like, the idea of the I said the Bible is specifically what was making this translate so well. Like, my translation, this says the earth was empty of formless mass, like cloaked in darkness. So it's like, it doesn't matter what you think, what sort of water, or
Yeah.
it's, you think it was a God or not. The whole point is God created it, no matter what you think. It's actual idea. It's just saying God is above all. So,
Yes, which is what? Someone go with me. Huh?
That would like that.
Now the Babylonians believe. It's a one word. We talked about it. No, not repetition. It's the first line that nothing's been repeated yet.
go back to me.
But
It's agency. It's agency. So off the rip, they're like, we're not interested in how stars work or how planets formed. Off the rip, God created. Whether you think it's darkness or chaos waters or whatever, God created. Okay? And it does not specify what nothing was. Why? It doesn't matter. It's not what it's not interested in giving you method. It's interested in giving you agency. Tracking? Okay. The earth was formless and void, darkness covered, and will land here. The deep waters, the chaos waters, the Tiamud, and the Spirit of God then hovered over the surface of the neutral waters. Okay? Now listen, this is something, and I'm going to leave us here, and then we'll pick up. And I promise you, it'll go much faster this week. We just had to make sure we're checking our biases at the door. Okay? We have healthy backpacks, all that type of stuff. We're looking at spaghetti good, all that type of stuff. Okay? Here's what is very different from our understanding of creation and God's understanding of creation / Israel's understanding of creation. Our understanding of creation is that creation is when something starts to exist. Hearing me? Okay? Creation is when something starts to exist. Yeah? Israel thinks creation is when something has purpose, when something has order. That's real creation. Because if I give you just like a pile of mud, and I just say, yeah, dude, here you go, pile of mud, you're going to look at me and you're going to say, dude, this is nothing. I got nothing to work with here. But someone that is intelligent and has power and has design takes the pile of mud and they make a little castle out of it. Now, all of a sudden, what have I done? I've given it purpose. I've created this thing. Does this make sense? So this is and make sure, and most of you guys are writing this down. Make sure to write this down. This is a fundamental difference between our understanding of the world and ancient Israel's understanding of the world. And it has huge ramifications throughout the story of the Bible. Because there's going to be times where God gives purpose to things, and we look at God and we say, what the heck, God, you're not creating. And God's saying, no, I am creating, just not in the way that you like me to. When something goes wrong in the Bible, what we say to God is, God, why don't you just make something new? God's saying, I'm redeeming something and giving it new purpose.
and spot.
I'm born again. I'm recreating.
really read our butts.
You guys, you're tracking with me here. How do I know all these things? I have to remove my 21st century American understanding and bias, and I have to impose the ancient Israel understanding of God, of creation, of culture, of literature, of everything, and I can start to understand more and more and more what God is doing. Does this make sense? Okay. So that's good. With that in mind, when we get into the creation story, it's going to make way more sense because every time God creates something, what's he do? He gives a purpose, right? So we'll just look here. God said, let there be light. And guess what happened when there was light? There was light. And what did the light do? Separated the light from so he creates something, he does speak into existence, and then he gives it purpose right away. Things don't exist for no reason. Things exist with purpose. Okay? Make sense? Now, Egypt and Babylon thought the same thing. They just thought of different purposes. What's human beings' purposes? To be a slave to God. We find out real quick in Genesis, that's not a human being's purpose. What's a human being's purpose in Genesis? Huh? To be the image of God. To represent God to the rest of the world. Which looks like walking with God, cultivating. When I cultivate the land, what do?
Turning.
I bring order. I give purpose. When I name all the animals, what do? I give order. What am I doing? I'm creating, which is what God does. I'm being an image of God by creating just how God creates, by giving order just how God gives order, by giving life just how God gives life. Tracking with me? Making sense? All right. So I know it started slow. I know it's a bit more of like a lecture type. I promise you that's not what it's going to be. We just really needed to make sure we understood our spaghetti, we understood our backpacks, we understood time travel, all those types of things. Okay? Any closing questions or thoughts?
Yes. This is kind of unrelated, but probably along the conversation. How did you find the name Yahweh and turn into God?
It's not actually. Or I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I spoke too soon. This is an issue I have. Say your question again.
Okay, does Yahweh mean God? Like, is that just our translation? No.
See, you guys know this. Oh, what are you freaking out about? It's
So unfortunate.
you just ripped your page off.
Yo, Romans 14. Romans 14:14 has been a
You're kind of those. All right, let's finish. Focus on this question. You guys know the answer to this. Some of you guys I've been talking to.
Do with like how it's ordered all caps, like in the Old Testament,
Yeah.
it's Yahweh.
So, yeah, go.
It said little all caps that is an indication that's translating from Yahweh. So it says Yahweh in the book, and that's what it's saying. But I'm pretty sure it's just because it's being named from other gods in different cultures. So when it was saying Yahweh, instead of just saying God, it could be like all of their gods. You know, thought that Yahweh is our God, the true one God.
So, I might have misled you because I might have been saying Yahweh the whole time. I might have misled you on that because I was superimposing my view on Genesis, which is hand up accountability. Because what does it say in Genesis? God, not Yahweh. Okay? Yahweh is God's personal name he gives Israel to call him, right? So all of a sudden, this impersonal God he's not impersonal, but what might be viewed as impersonal God has this direct specific name that he says, this is what you guys call me, okay? And it's a name that the ancient Jewish people had that they wouldn't say, they wouldn't write down, so it gets translated like syllables like YHWH, which gets translated into all caps Lord in our English Bible. We could go down a whole rabbit trail of that. But if you see capital Lord in your Bible, that's Yahweh, okay? But what do we see right here? God. Anybody know what this word means?
That
Or the original phraseology of this word?
Oh,
Anybody know? Have you ever heard the term Elohim?
that's down.
Okay. So Elohim is our God, but Babylon and Egypt, they would have said, yeah, there was chaos runners, and then Elohim came out of it. Our God came out of that. And we look and we say, our God started that. So why is it really cool that it says Elohim right here?
Because it relates to what they already did about Paragon.
Bingo. Yeah. So ancient Israel is saying, yeah, Egypt, you have Elohim. Babylon, you have Elohim. Our Elohim created your Elohim. Our Elohim created your waters. Our Elohim existed before your nothing existed. Does that make sense?
Do that.
Does that answer your question?
this kind of a lot, isn't that?
There's a lot in there, but does that kind of give a baseline understanding?
Yeah. When you would switch over to the all capital.
So we'll get there. So throughout the Bible, there's a story. Anybody know the story? Oh, I mean, know the story when Yahweh first gets introduced, like the name.
But it's when, is it God talking to Moses on Mount Sinai? Or somebody, talking to somebody. I think
Is it the birdie hymn?
I'm gonna give you guys this as homework. There's no homework, but this is your homework. Find the story when Yahweh first gets introduced as his name. Okay?
he's the correct.
This is your homework. This is your homework. You gotta go find it. You gotta find it, okay? You're not far off. You're not far off. But so why do we go through all this? I love that. That's a great question that brings us to Elohim, because Genesis is in discussion with Babylon and Egypt and the surrounding cultures. All the things you guys know to believe, we just know who actually did them. We know how they actually worked. And your gods work for our gods. Tiamat is under our God.
Trying to say it.
Tiamat. You guys track with me? Okay. You guys starting to see how the difference of understanding the scriptures makes a big deal. Okay? And you guys still believe that your faith in Jesus is real and all the things that you've read about the Bible are true. There's just more of an understanding that we can get behind by understanding the original intent. Yes? It's important to me that you all believe that. Okay, very good. All right.
This was to use it.
Exactly. Helps us to think through the process. So when an atheist looks at you and says, yeah, there's no, there was nothing and then there was like the Big Bang. It's like, no. Before nothing, there was God. And God created nothing. God created your So this is a rabbit trail. I won't go down there. We're over time. Okay. Any questions? Any last things? You guys rock. Did you like this class so far? Yes. Okay. It's only going to get better. I promise you. We did a lot of lecturing today, but we needed to know the rules before we could start playing.
This is like 7-step time.
Yes, it will be this every single week. We're going to try to go for 6 weeks, as best as we can. It's either going to be 5 or 6 weeks, depending on like when school starts. But we're going to do this 2 to 4 every Tuesday right here in this room.
And then I should be here then soon. We're going to send out like a split. And
I'm only recording the first 2 weeks because a bunch of people that are going to be here at sports camps. Okay? So what I don't want this to turn into is like, I'm not going to come on, just listen to the podcast. Like, no, I can't answer the question you have while you listen to the podcast if you're not in the room. You know what I mean? So I don't want it to just be another form of media. I want us to think. I want us to get our gears going. Yeah? Cool. All right. Who would like to pray for us? Tiamat?
Dear God, I just like you and just God through your word, you just have given this to us, God. I just pray that as we just deep dive into it, that you just help us have the right mindset and just show us what you want us to know, God, through it. And I pray you just give us wisdom and just know you like you do for all we do. Wisdom.
Amen.